The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Digital Communion. I'm Thomas. I'm joined by Nick Gregoriades. It is a beautiful day in Venice Beach. And today, Nick, today's question comes from a listener, actually. His name is Michael Okamoto. I hope I'm saying that right, Mike. Okamoto. And he posed a really great question to us. And that is, and now I'm going to ask it of you. Do you believe that love is a choice?
That's a great question. Michael. I've had a similar question. Up until very recently, the concept of people having thoughts. I heard this in a podcast yesterday. I thought this was fascinating, an amazing mind expansion little piece of the puzzle. Up until recently, the idea of people having thoughts was completely not known or never considered. And it was more, the dominant paradigm was that thoughts peopled. Does that make sense? As in, Joe Smith walking down the street doesn't suddenly think of an ice cream cone. It's the idea that the ice cream cone suddenly decides to express itself through Joe Smith and his mind.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Now that really, really, really expanded my consciousness when I heard that little snippet. And the first thing that enters into my consciousness, the first thought that peoples me when Michael asks his question, is that love is not something that is controlled by the user or the experiencer. I think it's something that is expressed through the experiencer or the lover. I don't have the answer. That's just what my current perspective. And again, as I always say, it might shift. What do you think, Thomas?
No. Before you ask me, let me delve a little bit deeper here. So how many times in your lifetime would you say you've been in love?
You see, it's so hard for me to answer that question as well, because my concept of what love is always changing. It's always shifting. It's like, I remember I had a girlfriend that I was so messed up over for so long, and I thought that I really, really loved her, and I realized it was just infantile infatuation. And so I know it's a shitty answer, Thomas. I already know it is, but what I will say is that there have been many times, many peak experiences in my life, and I consider those just as valid love experiences or expressions as looking into my fiance's eyes and having a deep care and passion and concern for her. When I'm standing in the middle of a desert at Burning Man, fucked out of my mind on MDMA, looking at the stars, just amazed by what's going on. Like, I'm in love, bro. I'm enraptured by, whoa, what the hell is going on? Or when I have a great jiu-jitsu match and I'm just amazed by how cool what myself and my training partner just expressed was. It's like, man, this is love, dude. Or when I bite into an apple and it's just fresh and like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much more to love than just romance. So to answer Michael's question, that term, that expression, I'm still trying to figure out what it is so I can't define it, or I can't answer specific questions about it. What do you think?
Slippery as can be, Nick Grigoriades. I'm going to take a more straightforward approach and say that, so Michael's position, just to clarify, was that it is a choice, that you always are capable of choosing. And I don't know if I agree with that, because I've done some really dumb shit as a result of being in this absolutely drunken state of emotion where it's almost like I couldn't stop it. It was like a runaway train, you know, like once it gets its hooks in, man, you're doing everything that you can to hold on to that, to the exclusion of everything else around you. At least that's why, you know, I assume the term's madly in love. It's a madness, man. It's an absolute madness. Now, choosing to be attentive to your partner, choosing to be sympathetic and empathetic to someone that you love and that you are in love with, past that madness, yes, I agree, that's a choice. But I would say I've been in love a few times, you know, and it's I call it the fire. In my 20s, I'd taken to calling it the fire. I'm like, I want the fire, I want the fire. And I didn't like the complacent feeling of relationships after what's known as the honeymoon phase. I was just like, well, this doesn't feel like love. This just feels like a business partnership, you know? Mm-hmm. I want the drunkenness, and I got really addicted to that. I addicted to being in love, to where you're just bananas over somebody and, you know, behaving like a crazy person. Mm-hmm. I really, really, really got off on that.
I think that's, again, it's all semantics. And as I said an
you might
episode
be
ago,
right. Yeah.
Like words limit us. I would say, man, when you told me on the last episode about on your birthday, you were sitting on your surfboard and what's his name? Gus the sea lion?
Oh, Gary,
the sea lion was there, and there was a pot of dolphins, and the sun was shining, and you were in the ocean, and you were just like saying thank you and being appreciative. Man, you were in love, dude. You were head over heels, madly in love with that moment and being alive. And I find everything like, man, I know there's an air of skepticism and cynicism in what I'm about to say now, but I just think that concept of love between a man and a woman has been so hijacked and fucked with by commercial interests and by the media and porn and just a bunch of different things that sometimes I don't even want to say to my girlfriend, I love you, because I just feel that word it's not right to describe what I have with her. If that makes sense.
Yeah, man, that's hot. That is, yeah. Everyone listening right now is going, yeah, sometimes saying I love you doesn't say enough. You know?
Yeah.
It's been hijacked the same way people sort of bandy the word hate around. Like, you don't really hate mushrooms on your pizza. You know what I mean? Like, you don't hate it's just such a strong word that's lost its strength, because it's, you know, you don't love Otter Pops. You don't love silly shit. Like, love isn't reserved. It doesn't have that power. You're right.
Yeah.
It's been hijacked. That's a great way to describe it. I feel like we're getting off track, but maybe not. Maybe that's exactly what the discussion should be, because the way that Michael put it was in the, you know, context of a relationship. And I totally understand what he's saying, but I also know that it's that feeling, that peak experience is temporary. And that's the thing that is probably the greatest blessing and the greatest curse at the same time.
I don't know that it's supposed to be temporary. It's been my 37 years of experience that it is transient, that peak experience. But I'm not so sure that that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm
Really?
Not, yeah. I'm starting to think. I'll never forget. I was 29, 30 years old. I was at a party at a really cool bar or nightclub in London. It was like more members bar. It was a really cool place, and I was with a bunch of people, and I think it was for my birthday if I'm not mistaken, and we all took some MDMA, and I remember someone looking at me, this woman, and we were just having a chat. Like, there was no romantic interest between us or attraction or anything like that. We were just having a good conversation. And I can't remember if it was her who said it or me who said it, but it was, the expression was, "This is the way we're supposed to feel all the time." And that just, it never left me, man. It never left me. It is, man, like, I really believe that you can stretch out those peak experiences. And I think if you were to, I've said this many times before, I'm sure Buddhist monks, high-level Buddhist monks, and people like Eckhart Tolle and Jesus, apart from the time when he was on the cross, are experiencing a one long, expanded peak experience. I'm sure of it.
Well, I have to mention, that's exactly what I said when we talked briefly about Nicaragua. Like, I was barefoot for 7 days, and I just never, the bliss state never went away, and I kept waiting for it, and it wasn't until I'd been back here. It lasted a good 3-4 days back in Los Angeles, where I was still like, I was like a mellow monk, man. Everywhere I went, I was like, it's okay, don't worry, things are good. And then, a few days later, I'm like, fears and afraid and anxiety and, but during that time, yeah, man, that was like a near constant state of bliss.
Bringing it back around to Mike's question, he himself mentioned it in the email that he sent us. He said when he makes that choice to be more loving towards his wife, that he finds it reflected back at him. And I think it's not so much the choice of being more loving, it's where you choose to, where and how you choose to channel your energy determines how it's going to be reflected and bounced back at you. So if you choose to send, whether we call it love or appreciation or gratitude or fuck whatever, and you direct that into your relationship with your girlfriend or your pet or your surfboard or whatever it is, it's going to come back, right? Whereas if you choose to channel that energy somewhere else, you only have a certain amount of energy or a certain amount of awareness that you can direct. And I think that is more aligned to what I believe. Like, you can direct your energy and have it reflected back at you, definitely.
Do you think that what we would call the chemical reactions that are going on when we experience sensations of extreme connectedness or love, or however you want to define it, do you think that will be able to be sequenced soon enough, just like the human genome? Is it too complicated?
What an incredible question. That is an incredible question. It is something that has been on my mind for a long time, and it's tied into the thing that you and I will discuss sooner or later. I think that there is a very concerted, very directed effort by a group of very intelligent sentiences that manifest through individuals and societies and civilizations as a whole, that is trying to synthesize that for its own nefarious purposes. And I don't think they will ever achieve it. I think that what love is the same as the life spark. The same way despite what you may have read or seen or heard on YouTube or in the news, on the media, they have not created life in the lab. They may have created some kind of expression of it or some sort of ability of a microbe to be animated or whatever it is that they've done, but they have not created what you experienced in the waves on your surfboard on your birthday. And I don't think they ever will. But I know they're trying. And one of the interesting things that I find about life that I've noticed is that every wholesome expression of nature and man, I think we may have spoken about this before, every wholesome expression has its own inferior copy that's posing or trying to do the same. Porn is one of them. Porn is the imposter to like a loving, healthy connection between a man and a woman.
Or two men or two women.
Or three women and one man, who knows?
Or a transvestite,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes, and you know, McDonald's, a Big Mac and a soda and a bunch of French fries is the imposter to a meal where you connect with another human being, whether it's over a kill that you've just made, you know, in that tribal culture, or your mom's just made you this meal, or whatever it is, or another thing like there's countless examples, man. Like the community, you have a community online of, I don't know, interacting with someone in a little forum, people shouting at each other, talking, like giving your opinions, is very different to the camaraderie or the spirit that emerges from a group of people in one place, either around a fire or sharing a meal or doing something together. It's very different. It's an imposter. And it has like an echo, as we said in a previous conversation, it has an echo of the truth, but it can never be the real thing. I mean,
wow,
look, dude, if someone made an android of your mom and hid your mom away, and when next time you went home the android was there, you would know, dude. You would know this. They could do anything they wanted. Just like in Terminator 2, when he knows something's wrong, when the T-1000's taken over his foster parents, he just knows. He's like, something's wrong, you know? Like, I think human beings, we know. Does this make sense?
Yeah, and it takes just, I think, 100th of a second or something. There's those cues where you're just deeply disturbed by something that's just off a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And you make snap judgment. Well, I mean, it's meant to be a survival mechanism, is how I've heard it described, although perhaps that's not the case. Man, that gives me a lot to think about. I was just this whole conversation, I feel like my thoughts are just sort of mushrooming out right now. I'm trying to keep it together.
No, let them go, my man. Let them fly.
Well, so who are these people that are behind a nefarious synthesis of something as challenging as, you know, the physiological expression of love? How do you make that ones and zeros, and what could they possibly... I'll tell you what it made me think of, the Ministry screenplay I was telling you about, where the protagonist or the villains are using love as the weapon. They're telling everybody that they're super tolerant and that they love you. They're like, I love you. And that is what makes everyone go, okay, this organization seems all right. Like,
Yeah.
That's the highest expression of what we can say to each other as human beings. And really, behind the scenes, they're, you know, taking over. But it just made me think of that. And so tell me more about the nefarious aims of these shadow beings. Shadow sentiences is what you said.
My man, I will leave that for another day. And then I will discuss on our own. That is for if people are interested in that kind of stuff, for them to meditate on and search further. I don't even know if I'm correct in my assumptions or what I've recognized. I'm still figuring it all out. But it's not really something that I want to get into on digital communion.
Fair enough.
Brother, until the next time, that was a great conversation. I appreciate you listening to my wacky theories.
Yeah, and thanks to Mike for sending us the email and that sparked this whole thing to begin with. Man, you're awesome. Thank you for listening.
If anyone else wants to send comments or topic discussion questions, it's digital communing. That's digital communing at gmail.com. And also guys, please leave a review on iTunes. That means a lot to us. It's climbing the rankings. Which means more people listen to the show, which means it gives Thomas and I motivation to make more and just connect more with you guys.
Also, Coke and Horse.
Not yet. We're still gonna make some bucks first, right?
Yeah, we'll pay you later. Thank you guys so much. Blessings to you, Nick.
Peace, my brother.